Well, good evening and welcome to the City of Topeka Planning Commission meeting. We are a commission appointed by the mayor and city council to plan for the orderly growth and development of the community, to hold public hearings, and to make recommendations to the city council on planning items. Please note that the city council rules state that public hearings for planning cases shall be conducted solely by the planning commission. No additional public hearings will be conducted by the city council. Tonight's cases are tentatively scheduled to be heard by the city council next month. Agendas can be found at www.topeka.org. Many of tonight's cases involve public hearings or one. For those cases, the procedure will be as follows. First, the planning department staff will summarize the case. Next, we will hear from the applicant or their representative. Then we will receive public testimony. Public comments should be addressed solely to the chair and are limited to 4 minutes each. Ms. Wages, please call roll.
Mr. Beck.
Here.
Mr. Crook.
Here.
Ms. Cuevas Stubblefield.
Here.
Mr. Gales.
Here.
Mr. Jefferson.
Here.
Mr. Hall.
Here.
Ms. Jordan.
Here.
Mr. Lackey.
Here.
Mr. Woods.
Here.
We have 9 in attendance and a quorum.
Thank you. Meeting minutes. We'll start with Monday, let's see, the September 22nd meeting minutes. Are there any revisions, corrections?
I have a question.
Mr. Lackey.
Did we really just approve the June meeting that last time?
Well, that's the 29th. We'll start
That's
with
how
this
far we
one.
were? Oh, you're the other
Start
one.
with this one
Okay.
first, and we'll get to that one.
All right.
Anything on that? I see approval of minutes was seconded by Mr. Lackey. Do you want to claim that, Mr. Lackey? It has a question mark.
Last time? Oh,
From the 22nd?
I don't remember it.
I think you did.
I think we'll run with it. Anything else? Any other items or motion?
I move we accept the minutes of the September 22nd meeting.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We'll move on to the meeting minutes for Monday, September 29th. Mr. Lackey, there you go.
Okay. Now, I was ahead one meeting. Were we that far behind that we only approved the June meeting? I know it was one in arrears, but was it that far back?
Yeah.
I believe that was correct. Is that Bill?
Yes, that was our last, I guess, policy meeting,
Okay.
which is why it was that late.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. I'd move that we approve the minutes then.
A second. We have a move and a second by Mr. Haw. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, item C on our list is communications. Mr. Finder?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There were a couple handouts tonight that relate to the action item on the agenda. The only couple other communications, one, as you probably are aware, the Walgreens PUD was approved by City Council last week, so that's moving forward. There is no meeting next week, and there will probably be one meeting in November. Not probably, there will be one meeting in November. And that will probably be in a policy meeting over at the Holiday Building. And then last but not least, as we just want to make sure we're all on the same page with attendance procedures, we are going to go ahead and keep continuing to send out notices for the meeting on Outlook for you all. And if we do not hear back or if no confirmation by the day of the meeting, we'll call. We don't want to bother you too much in your line of work, but if we didn't hear, we'll give you a call if that's okay. So we'll just, if you have any comments on that, please let us know. But that's it.
Okay. Item D, declaration of conflicts or ex parte communications. No, I will say I did have a casual conversation with the county planning director in his office one day last week. Any others? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to item E, which is our public hearing portion. We do have one item, that's the Land Use and Growth Management Plan for 2040. Mr. Finder.
Thank you again. You've heard quite a bit about this in your meetings. So what we were going to do tonight for the benefit of the viewing public and also to kind of hit the highlights, we wanted to run the video that the city has produced on it's about an 8-minute video. I know you've seen it. If we could do that, then that'll give a good background and summary on the plan itself. I will follow up with some sort of takeaways from that that may have been glossed over a little bit in the video. And then I will go over also the public comment that we received in the last few months on our Mind Mixer side, as well as at the meetings. And then if you have any questions at the end about the changes, the changes that we handed out tonight, those actually came from our technical advisory team meeting last week. So, and Dan can go over those in more if you have questions about that. So that's kind of the show, so to speak. And then we'll be out of the way, and you can open up to any comments after that. So, if that sounds acceptable, without further ado.
We're transforming planning in the city of Topeka with an update to the city's land use and growth management plan. It's a fresh look at how and where the city grows and invests, and it's focused on fiscally responsible, sustainable, planned growth.
The plan is about making a choice. We can choose to continue in our current pattern of development, or we can choose to have a more fiscally responsible way of growing.
Topeka's land use and growth management plan, our framework for the future. Smart growth in the city of Topeka starts with the newly updated Land Use and Growth Management Plan, an element of the city's overall comprehensive plan. The plan guides the future sequencing of growth in Topeka to ensure investments in infrastructure and services are in place prior to development.
The future growth of the city of Topeka is broken down into 3 tiers. The top tier is going to be the one with the most priority for investment, and that very simply is the city of Topeka's city limits.
Planning Director Bill Fiander says Topeka's footprint includes 5 basic services: police, fire, water, sewer, and roads.
And if all 5 of those services are either in place or are planned to be in place, then that's an area we should be growing into.
Tier 1, Topeka's existing city limits, meets that definition.
To be sustainable, we have to have an urban density and we have to have an urban pattern. To bring in areas that do not have that is not sustainable and will only continue to undermine our core areas.
Tier 1 has seen its share of unbalanced investment. Not enough resources have been invested in our older areas, the spots that need it the most.
One of the biggest reasons to reinvest in our core neighborhoods is we've already made that down payment. The community has invested in this area.
This map shows residential building and demolition permits in the last 25 years. You can see most red dots, or demolitions, in the city's core, and most blue dots, single-family homes, being built on the fringe of the city and beyond, a reflection of the disinvestment.
To reinvest back in those core areas means to reuse the infrastructure, utilize the existing services that are already provided there to grow those areas back. There's no reason to abandon any of those.
One reason to reinvest is to increase our density. Population leakage and low-density sprawl means fewer residents sharing in the cost of services and makes those services more costly to provide. Since 1960, Topeka's land area has grown 65%, while the city's population grew only 7%, meaning we're less dense.
We are growing at our borders horizontally with virtually the same population. And we're not as dense, we're not as compact, that's more costly for the city to provide services for.
On top of that, we've been sprawling beyond the city limits. The city's share of Shawnee County's population has continued to decline, and the population outside the city has more than doubled. In the last 50 years, only 2 out of every 10 new county residents moved inside the city. Compare that to Lawrence, where over the same time, 8 out of 10 Douglas County residents moved into Lawrence.
If we would have kept that same share over the last 50 years, we would have had 23,000 more people, which would equate to probably $6 to $10 million a year in today's dollars to better serve our infrastructure and our services within the current footprint.
Lax rules and regulations have led to unplanned growth, something that's exacerbated the sprawl. Moving towards sustainable growth requires a land use and growth management plan built on a foundation of smart growth and strategic investment.
If you're going to attract a younger population and you're going to be able to retain a younger population and grow families and grow a community, you have to have a quality of life that will make them want to live here.
Pillars of the updated plan include promoting compact development, investing in place and where we already are. Mike Wilson, architect, developer, and president of Architect One, has been instrumental in several successful examples of infill and redevelopment projects.
We were able to create a wonderful architecturally designed space that we couldn't really do in a new building.
Wilson talks about the benefits of where he put his business, 906 South Kansas Avenue in the heart of downtown Topeka.
The shell was good, location was great, and we are just thrilled to be down here.
Wilson and his crew also saved the historic Carlin building next door, and the reinvestment paid off, increasing the property value there nearly tenfold.
We used to have our offices out in southwest part of the city, but we made a conscious choice to return to downtown. We like the excitement. We really appreciate the fact that we can walk most anywhere, get whatever we need. Before we had to get in our car.
Downtown is a great example. It's the poster child, if you will, of compact development. You have all the elements here. It's mixed use. You have transportation choices. You can walk anywhere. You could bike, all within a very short distance. You can live here, work here, all in the same place. The same streets, the water lines, the sewer lines, the police, the fire are serving a much smaller area, but we're getting a lot more return on that investment.
Wilson also took an old junior high school in North Topeka, Curtis Junior High, and turned what was a shell, destined to be demolished, into an apartment facility for seniors and additional family housing. The redevelopment added more than $870,000 per acre to the property's appraised value. Wilson says he took advantage of historic tax credits and neighborhood revitalization assistance on the rehabs. Fyander says those are big incentives for reinvestment in our community's core. The biggest incentive, though, is where the city builds its infrastructure, and Fyander says the infrastructure and services are already in place for hundreds more reinvestment opportunities around town.
We have about 1,200 lots in new subdivisions within the city limits that have not been built on. That's another 4,000 potential people within the existing city limits we've already made an investment and a down payment into. We need to realize we have the potential where we're at to unleash that value.
City planners worked with their technical advisory team to set more realistic population projections in the new plan. The current plan, adopted in 2003, does plan for growth, but on a bloated scale that's not fiscally responsible or realistic. A new urban growth area, or UGA, is an addition to the updated plan. It sets a realistic and affordable footprint to grow into in the next 25 years. The areas most ready for annexation as part of the future city are labeled as Tier 2 in the new plan. Tier 2 promotes a compact and sustainable approach where all 5 services of the city can be provided without significant investment. Beyond that, Tier 3 of the UGA is an area that's not ready for inclusion in the city, but that should be planned for down the road. New recommended platting and utility rules will help make sure compact urban densities critical to the city's fiscal health can be achieved as the city grows into the future.
If we can provide transportation choices, housing choices, mixed-use neighborhoods, walkable neighborhoods, that actually ends up attracting younger cohorts that can come in and grow the community. All of those things take pressure off of our streets. It allows us to be more dense, more compact, and we can grow a population and serve it on the same infrastructure with the same resources as opposed to spreading out more.
Smart growth and sustainability, transforming Topeka with the city's land use and growth management plan.
And I'll remind you, you told us, excuse me. I'll remind you that this body recommended we do that, so. And just so you know, we played that a lot at our meetings we have it out there on our website, have gotten it around, and I think it sends the message we're trying to get through, hopefully. But there are a few things that were kind of glossed over, and I just want to make sure as we walk away from that, we all have best of an understanding of a couple of the details, a couple of the major recommendations that were coming out of there. So let me, all right. Thank you. One of the things that I noticed watching that, first of all, there's 4 major recommendations. The first one is establishing an urban growth area. One of the, and that what is that? That's the future city limits of the city. What you didn't see in there, I don't think, was what I have up on the screen is there's a pink area behind our urban growth area, which is much larger in scope. That is the current planned growth area in the current plan for the city. And as you noted, watching that, it poses a lot of problems as you plan for 90,000 people, which is 10 times the growth rate we've had in the last 50 years. So we've projected a much more realistic growth rate based on our trends to add 12,000 people in the next 25 years. And so consequently, we had to reduce the growth area, which also makes us and fits into our compact development pattern, which will help us be more sustainable. So I just wanted to, again, share that with you and again, reemphasize that that is a big change in the plan. Next, the other one of the major recommendations was to actually try and implement the policy that is in the current plan, which is for 20-acre minimum lots outside the city. One thing, again, for those of you that do not know, and those watching, the city has subdivision authority within 3 miles of the city limits. As we grow in, and that's because to protect that area for future growth, to plan for it. And the current plan recommends a 20-acre minimum lot size. That's never been implemented other than through our utility rules. So I think to complete that circle, we're recommending that the subdivision regulations come back to you and implement that. Why? Well, we tried to put up, give you an idea of why that's important, because it helps the city plan for future growth. Right now, under the current rules, we only have review authority for 8% of the vacant land outside the city in our future city limit area. If we were to update that rule, then we're almost at half of the remaining vacant land the city could review and approve under the current policies of the plan. On the left, at the bottom there, that's kind of the current formation of under the current rules, where you have the 3-acre plus stripping of lots along a road. What we've proposed is going up to a 20-acre section, but also allow for some modifications to do some lot splits, as long as the large majority of that land can be reserved for future urban development. Because our goal is on the far right. That's what we want to get to. That is an area that we could grow into with an urban density down the road. If you do what's on the far left right now under the current rules, you'll never get to what's on the far right under the goal. So that helps us become more compact and dense as we grow. Okay. And please, if you have any questions along the way, let me know. The third thing is really coming out of the plan is utility rules outside the city. We had a strong show of support to continue requiring annexation if we do extend water or sewer outside the city. That is, we heard back from our comments from the public on that a lot. So just so everyone's aware, so we currently do have the rules in place that do require annexation if you are to connect to city water or city sewer. The one thing we probably do need to clarify, though, is some of the exemptions, because there's going to be reasons why you want to do that and not annex. You don't want to annex. You don't want to annex everything just because you're connecting to city water or city sewer. It doesn't make sense. We don't have all 5 services. It's not compact. But there are reasons, because we do have the lines out there already, as this. I think this map was in the video, as we show here. There's quite a network of water and sewer lines in our 3-mile area. So we do have to be cognizant that there's already development. There may be some infill parcels and some lots that that their neighbors are getting water or sewer or water, and so it doesn't defeat any purpose here in the plan to just serve them water and exempt them out from the annexation. So I think we should be clarifying those rules as well, and to be quite fair about it. And then just clarify what economic development is, because sometimes you do want to extend utilities for something that benefits a great deal of the community with a large investment of jobs. And these are usually industrial type developments, and maybe they need large requirements for water. So they might make sense. But we're not out there that far yet. You may not want them right next to your neighborhood, so that you do want them out. They've separated out a little bit more. So there are times when that is appropriate, and so we want to clarify those exemptions. And the last is just again on annexation. This plan helps identify areas where we have 5 of our services in place or will be in place without any significant investment. The big investments, such as fire stations or sewer interceptors or transmission lines for water or expansion of our plants, arterial roads, those are the community investments. So if those are in place, and there are areas that are on the fringe that can be either developed now or can be developed with those in place, then those should be in what we call our tier 2, and will make us more compact. So we should be bringing those forth for approval. And we have a map in the plan in the back that kind of starts to identify a few of those parcels and a few of those subdivisions. And then we also have some study areas there. Okay, that was the growth management section, the land, which was what the video was based on. There is also another chunk of the plan that talks about land use, because land use is is the other major part that drives our growth, where we and how we grow. And so we updated the land use plan, for the future land use plan in your document. There weren't any really big changes other than to clarify some boundaries. This is painted with more of a broad brush. This is not specific like zoning is. So we have more general parameters for where land use is appropriate and where it benefits the community. The big change, if any, would be we've classified all the intersections, or most of those major arterial intersections, for nodal patterns. Nodal is concentrating in commercial or mixed-use development at those arterial intersections, as opposed to spreading those out along our arterials. We've also kind of removed the areas where there are neighborhood plans already in the city, because those are more specific land use plans. So we want, if there is development and those are mostly in the core areas of the city where we have those, there's just more specific land use recommendations in those plans that refer to. And then this also reflects the new urban growth area. So, so that's really the update to the land use part of it. And then lastly, we went through some public engagement through, and by the way, I should say take this time to just thank. I guess we'll see how it goes, but I should thank the people that worked on this. The technical advisory team that we had put together this year as an outgrowth of a work. We started this a couple years ago, this update through an EPA workshop, have built on it this year with a team of professionals that have helped guide this to look at a more fiscally responsible growth pattern, and they helped us with some of the content in here. So I want to thank them without naming them all. There's about a dozen of them. Our other public engagement, though, came through the community meetings and that we held in September. We've also had some stakeholder interviews, but I thought it was interesting to point out to you, and this is in your packets that you got last week, the kind of the summary of the comments we got back from the public. And we posed 3 questions along the way over the course of this. The first one was, how can Topeka grow in an economically sustainable manner? And just a few comments and that I edited, because not all of them are probably an economically sustainable manner. Reinvest in core of city and in areas where there is not as much investment. That was the most documented comment, to reinvest back in our older areas. Use eminent domain for demolition and redevelopment and blight. That's talking about problem properties that just sit there, and I think that was in the news here last week or so, trying to get some legislation moving on that. Quit supplying water outside the city to rural water districts unless they're inside the city. Again, that's the requiring annexation part. There was a comment about sustainability is more than economics, health, healthy lifestyles, natural resources, preserving our green spaces, also take that into account. So that's sort of a summary of that first question. And then there's 2 more questions. One, the second one, which growth strategy should the city implement to increase economic sustainability? Again, and we set, and you have that chart, which the bar graph, the bar chart that shows what those are. The top vote getters, number 1 was invest in tier 1. That's our city limits. That's what we are proposing to do, to be a priority at least. Incentives for downtown and core neighborhoods, again, came through strongly. Again, no more city water or sewer without annexation. Mixed-use development, that's something we just slightly touched on in the land use plan up here, but it's weaves its way throughout the entire plan. Mixed-use development, which means combining residential with retail and office on the same block or same lot, really connects and makes us more, can make us more dense and compact and increase transportation choices. So that's a great one. And the last one is 20-acre minimum for new lots outside city. So those were the top growth strategies we should implement, which are all in the plan. And then lastly, we just, for fun, we said, okay, well, can you identify some specific locations for further infill and redevelopment? And so that we have a sustainable footprint. Again, downtown neighborhoods, areas around the dynamic core on both sides of the river, came through loud and clear. White Lakes, 29th and Fairlawn, which is largely vacant now, and then also some talk about the Expo Center area. But those were, so that was just threw that out there, try to get some ideas back. We didn't necessarily want to identify specific locations. I think that is left up. We want to provide some parameters as to where those locations can be, which is what the land use plan is for. But, so anyway, I thought that was telling, some of those comments that we received back. Lastly, we did hand out some changes to the plan tonight. If you, I don't know if you want Dan to go over it or not. Basically, our technical advisory committee pointed out two things, and we've tried to address those with some potential language, policy language, regarding development, infill development outside the city limits, as well as potential employment or industrial type development that's unique outside the city limits. Those were the main changes. So I'll stop there, and I feel like I've been on TV way too much right now. So we'll let you have a turn.
Mr. Lackey?
Yes, I have a question, Bill. Assuming this commission adopts a plan and the city council adopts a plan, what additional bureaucratic hoops have to be jumped through to implement it? Ordinances, things like
Right.
that, just very much, and
Yeah.
who's gonna drive that?
We will. The planning staff will. There's two things that I said three things actually. So the first thing would be subdivision regulations, which you have to make a recommendation on. So they would come back through the planning commission. Utility rules, you wouldn't see, but we would want your recommendation on that. I mean, you don't have any legislative authority on that, but we will share that, any changes with you, and bring it to you as a package with the subdivision rules. And then the annexations, those will be something the city, other city departments and staff will put together. We'll identify and guide that process, but any large, I think in the plan we have identified anything over 10 acres should come back to this body for a recommendation. So
You know, I just wanted to make sure this didn't fall off the cliff after it gets approved.
I guess, Bill, along those lines, I would just ask how the communication with the county is gonna move forward as far as implementing, because they do have a stake in what's going on outside of the city limits, and how that plays. What's the plan for that?
yeah, we would, as we've done here, we've shared with your counterparts at the Shawnee County Planning Commission the same presentation, the same elements, and so I would want to continue through that, through their planning advisory body as best as possible with these recommendations, and let them help along the way.
I don't know if they don't have anything to sink their teeth into outside the city limits. If we do this, then what'll prevent the 3 acres from recurring, I guess, is what.
Well, if to implement that, you would need to really change our subdivision regulations, the city's subdivision regulations, and just to even begin to have the chance to review further subdividing outside the city that's over 3 acres. So it would go through the city's own authority to change that. But I think we've tried to provide for some modifications, if you will, so that's not one size fits all, that there are some, we recognize there's already subdivisions out beyond the city that this isn't really intended for. It's really for new lots that are being created that wouldn't currently be reviewed and approved in a way that protects the area for future urbanization. So,
Okay. I just do hope that the continued dialogue with the county does happen as far as implementation of it, to make sure every city and county are on the same page, and that things don't fall through the cracks. Any other questions or comments for Mr. Fyander? Would you like a summary of the changes. I think I would, for Mr. Warner. That sounds good?
Yep.
We could do that? Thank you, Bill.
All right. There's a paperclip group of papers there that represent a few changes to the draft that we gave you last week. So we'll start with what is page 21 in the draft. And really, this came from the technical advisory team to sort of clarify what we were talking about with the urban growth area development standards. So in number 2, it talks about the minimum lot size for newly created lots shall comply with the city's zoning code minimum lot sizes. And that's just to reinforce that if it's an industrial type project, that minimum lot size is not 20 acres, so that wouldn't necessarily comply with these standards, but a residential type use would. A little farther down, we deleted plat of survey, because actually plat of survey is part of the minor plats. So we moved that a single development lot on an existing lot less than 20 acres would have to get a minor plat. Within that minor plat, there can be decisions made of whether or not there can be a plat of survey or not. And then just sort of, again, clarifying that next bullet down, proposing to create, it just said 2 lots or more. We just included proposing to create to recognize that that is creating 2 or more lots. And then that final part on the bottom, sort of that new bullet under minor plat, that's to sort of recognize there will be some situations where you've got existing 3-acre lots, and that is the character of that neighborhood. So it may be appropriate if you're not extending utility infrastructure to permit a lot split in that situation and try to meet some of the other standards with road frontage and driveway separation. So again, being a little more flexible than what we had been. You move the next page, which is page 27. In the document, under policies, it's employment tier policies, so number two is new. There may be some situations where an industrial user or an employment type user will want to locate outside of the urban growth area. So not within the employment tier, just outside of the urban growth area. So we set up some considerations basically to that it may be appropriate to serve that type of development, even though it's outside the urban growth area. So again, a little more flexibility potentially in that case. Page 32 is just making sure that we are this policy requiring consents to annexation for all development within service tier 3 and the employment tier. So the letter C there, we just added and the employment tier, and then moved down the rest of those letters. And finally, the map. It's the annexation map. It's a new map. It's zoomed out a little farther, and basically what we did at the top is added a couple study areas around 25th Street, which would be in the employment tier, just to recognize there's some areas there that may have some infrastructure or may not have some infrastructure. Do want to study those areas a little further. So a new map and then adding a couple triangles to that map. And that's it. Any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Warner? Any other comments amongst the commission before we open up for public hearing? Okay, hearing none, I think we will move forward with the public hearing portion of this evening. Again, when you come up to the microphone to speak, we would ask that you state your name and address so that we know who you are and where you are in Topeka. And you have 4 minutes to speak. So is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak in favor of or against the action this evening?
I'll beat the rush. Ivan Weichert, I live at 1932 Southwest Collins Avenue. I've resided in the city all the time that I've lived in Topeka. Couple broad brush items. Really urge you to move forward with this plan. Any community, especially this one, needs a plan such as this, and it needs to be, as you indicated, implemented. What's next for that, and follow through on that. I believe there was a mistake made many years ago when the Planning Commission dissolved as the Metropolitan Planning Commission. And if the conversation ever presents itself to go back to that method of planning together rather than let's make sure that the county gets talked to, let's make sure that our needs meet their needs, there was a good reason to have a comprehensive Metropolitan Planning Commission. And these kinds of efforts are very important to that. My job now is CEO and president for the Topeka Home Builders Association. Very much a body of hardworking people who want to see growth and development in their community. Their livelihoods depend on it. Proper growth, absolutely. I don't see anything here that's overly restrictive, so I don't think we would have any issues with that. But just these kinds of plans help the community want to grow. So I'd urge you to continue with that. I'd like to be able to get a copy of the changes that were mentioned tonight in the new map. I didn't know how that was available unless you're on this panel. So that's important as I go back to my group and explain to them what I saw tonight and what is coming in the future. That details. We want to make sure we have that. Lastly, stay the course. See that the plan is approved. If questions come up, answer those, find out why, and then move on to implementation, because too many times we have great rules and great thoughts and great plans, and they just fail to get the full attention. I think the Planning Commission, when it was dissolved, was because people in leadership positions just couldn't get along. It had nothing to do with the details of planning and the efforts put forth by many of the staff that I worked with over the years. It was people couldn't get along, so leave that behind and do good work. Any questions for me?
So I did have one question, Mr. Weichert. I know you didn't get a chance to really let the new revisions sink in, but did you hear anything that was alarming to you when Mr. Warner was summarizing the changes?
No.
Have the Home Builders Association had, members had a chance to see the video that was presented tonight?
I am not aware that they have, unless they happened to be at one of the meetings that was but it wouldn't be adverse to having that available to us, and we could show it at one of our monthly meetings, one of our general membership meetings.
Bill, is that video on the website?
Correct. It's available for anybody to view right now on the city of Topeka.org website. And you can just go to the front page of Topeka.org and click on the Land Use and Growth Management Plan icon, and it'll take you to the page with the video.
All right.
So, yeah.
I would add that another entity that I'm very involved with for the last 15 years, Topeka Habitat for Humanity, we have been very successfully and very consistently working to do infill growth. We have built over 90 homes in the last 30 years in Topeka in infill areas. And that has happened many times with the help of the city, with lots and advantages to make that happen. But we can't do that all on our own. That's something that has to be done with a lot of other people. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here tonight that would wish to speak? Yes.
My name's Andy Fry. I live at 1622 Plass. I'm on the Bikeways Advisory Board, as well as I've helped with the Harlan Healthy Neighborhoods Built Environment group or committee. I perused through the plan, and the main thing I would like to discuss is mainly it mentions complete streets and accommodations for bikes and pedestrians and that sort of thing on streets and in neighborhoods as it goes along. And if anything, I'd just like to see stronger language towards whether it's a complete streets policy or ordinance or something of that matter. It mentions the fact that complete streets are important elements, or that they are something that you should strive for, but having a mandated policy when looking at designs would be better from my perspective and probably from the entities I represent. So, thanks.
Any questions? Thank you. I know it's always the intent to try and do as much as we can for the complete streets concepts. There are certain situations where existing conditions may prohibit it, but as much as possible, I know that's the goal, is to strive for complete street, to allow that pedestrian intermodal traffic to go throughout the city. Anyone else here to speak? I'll give you an extra minute. Okay, I'm not seeing anyone else. So we will effectively close the public hearing portion and open up to the commission. Any discussion? I personally believe there's been a lot of hard work and thought put into this document, and I think with the advisory committee and Mr. Warner and Mr. Feinder's work, it's a reasonably a very good document. Again, I just would reiterate as we move forward with implementation that it is the cities, but we will be affecting the county. As Mr. Weichert suggested, we work together to make it a good end result.
I'd like to reiterate my previous congratulations to staff, because I think they've done a tremendous job, and I think this is a really good document that's needed for the city of Topeka. I'd urge you to stay on top of it and push the implementation through.
I just love to toss a little bit of recognition out there. In my short time on the commission, I am still not tired of seeing, even though I've seen it 20 times, the wonderful video we just got a chance to see Bill speaking. I think the staff definitely, from what I've seen, I've been on for a month now and had been paying attention before that, but the process in which this plan was developed, with established community meetings, with various ways to solicit input, I think about it as, where were you during my, old master's thesis days of having to put together a planning commission report. But thank you for what you do, and I'm excited about this.
I would add my compliments, and I think it's going to help us as members of the Planning Commission to a living document we can refer to as we make decisions. So it'll be great to have.
Well, I would make a motion that we approve the plan as presented to us tonight, including the corrections that Dan discussed.
That motion, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the motion? Do I need to give you all another minute as well?
I did bring this small stack of proposed changes. If you, I'll leave those aside.
We'll go ahead and order in dinner then, is that what you're saying?
Shouldn't take long.
It's on.
Mr. Chair, if I may,
Yes.
before you, not to interrupt progress here, But it's just a reminder when Commissioner Jordan spoke about the living document. It is our intention to update this. This is not, so if you vote tonight, move forward, I hope it is my commitment, my intent to put this in front of you more than just every 10 years. Hopefully every year we'll bring forth any needed updates, or in between when we do need updates. There may be something that it's not perfect. There may be a situation where we need clarification or whatever. So we do intend it to be living, indeed.
So every young MPA thesis student who needs some material to write about has something every year.
Have a new video.
There you go.
Anything else before we vote? All right, hearing none. Ms. Wagers, if you would, please call roll.
Mr. Hall.
Aye.
Mr. Crook.
Aye.
Mr. Beck.
Aye.
Ms. Jordan.
Aye.
Mr. Woods.
Aye.
Mr. Lackey.
Aye.
Mr. Jefferson.
Aye.
Mr. Gales.
Aye.
Ms. Cuevas Stubblefield.
Aye.
The motion passes by 9-0.
All right, thank you. And again, congratulations on a job well done for staff and the committee. That is our last item of the evening. Is there anything else we need to bring before the commission? Hearing none, we will be adjourned. Thank you all.
Quit.